The cave principle, why isolation creates unstoppable men. Every great transformation begins with disappearance. Men leave the world and return unrecognizable, not broken by isolation, but forged by it, not hiding from life, but rebuilding themselves in silence so they can return stronger than before. History is filled with this pattern: the warrior who withdraws to the mountain and returns a master, the leader who disappears into the wilderness and emerges with vision, the entrepreneur who goes dark for 6 months and launches something that changes everything. We call this the cave principle. And if you're going through it right now, if you've withdrawn from the world, if you're sitting in silence wondering if you'll ever be okay again, if you're isolated and rebuilding, this video will show you that you're not broken. You're in the cave, and the cave is where transformation happens. Let me show you the pattern. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest samurai who ever lived, disappeared into a cave at the height of his power. He'd defeated every opponent. His reputation was legendary. He could have lived off his fame, opened a dojo, trained students, become wealthy. Instead, he withdrew, for years, into actual caves in the mountains of Japan. No students, no duels, no audience, just Musashi, his sword, and silence. What was he doing? Writing, training, thinking, stripping away everything he thought he knew about combat, about life, about himself. In that isolation, he wrote The Book of Five Rings, a text that would influence warriors, business leaders, and strategists for 500 years. Musashi didn't enter the cave because he was weak. He entered because he understood something most men never learn. The world will shape you unless you withdraw long enough to shape yourself. Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple in 1985, the company he founded. Public humiliation, career destroyed, identity shattered. He disappeared, not physically into a cave, but functionally. He went quiet, stopped trying to explain himself, stopped defending his reputation. He withdrew into smaller projects, Next, Pixar, working in relative obscurity while everyone wrote him off as finished. 12 years later, he returned to Apple, and the man who came back wasn't the same man who left. The ego had been burned away. The clarity had been refined. He led Apple to become the most valuable company in human history. The cave transformed him. Henry David Thoreau walked away from society in 1845 and built a cabin at Walden Pond. He lived there for 2 years in deliberate isolation, not because he hated people, but because he needed to strip away the noise and figure out what actually mattered. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." Thoreau entered the cave, and he emerged with Walden, a book that would reshape how millions of people think about life, purpose, and what it means to live with intention. Ancient stories understood this pattern instinctively. The hero always enters the cave, the desert, the forest, the underworld, not for vacation, for transformation. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading his people. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert before beginning his ministry. The Buddha sat under a tree in isolation until enlightenment came. These aren't religious doctrines, they're archetypal patterns. Before every great emergence, there's a great withdrawal. The world doesn't talk about this part. We see the triumph, the return, the transformation. We don't see the cave, the isolation, the silence, the reconstruction. But every man who's ever become truly powerful has spent time there. Modern entrepreneurs know this. Before launching a startup, many founders go monk mode. They disappear from social media, stop going to parties, stop networking. They withdraw into garages, apartments, coffee shops, modern caves where they build in silence while the world forgets about them. Then they emerge with something nobody saw coming. Elon Musk sleeping on the SpaceX factory floor, Jeff Bezos building Amazon in his garage, the Collison brothers building Stripe in near total obscurity before launching. The cave isn't where you go to give up, it's where you go to rebuild. Artists understand this. Writers enter monk mode before major works. Musicians disappear for years between albums. Painters withdraw into studios. They're not hiding, they're shedding the expectations, the performance, the noise, so they can create something real. If you're in isolation right now, whether by choice or by circumstance, whether you're rebuilding after a loss, recovering from failure, or just stepping back to figure out who you actually are, hit the like button. You're not broken. You're in the cave, and this message is going to show you why that's exactly where you need to be. So what is the cave principle? At its core, isolation is the crucible where identity is forged. Here's why the cave is so powerful. First, isolation strips external validation. In the world, you're constantly being measured by your job title, your income, your social status, your appearance, your performance. You become addicted to external feedback. You start living for other people's opinions. The cave removes all of that. There's no audience, no applause, no validation, just you and the work. At first, this feels like death. Your ego screams, "Who am I if nobody's watching? What's the point if nobody sees?" But if you stay in the cave long enough, something shifts. You realize, I'm still here. The work still matters. The growth still happens, whether anyone sees it or not. You stop needing validation because you're building something deeper. Self-respect, competence, identity that doesn't require witnesses. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius journaled every morning, private reflections never meant for publication. He was the most powerful man in Rome, and he wrote to himself in isolation, asking hard questions. What am I doing with my life? Am I living with integrity? Am I becoming who I should become? No audience, no performance, just a man in the cave of his own mind, confronting himself. Second, silence reveals identity. In the noise of the world, you can't hear yourself think. You're reacting constantly, responding to notifications, demands, expectations, crises. You're so busy managing external inputs that you never process internal truth. The cave is silent. And in that silence, you finally hear what's actually true. You realize which ambitions were yours and which were borrowed, which goals actually matter and which were just status games, who you really are versus who you were performing as. This is terrifying at first, because what you hear might not be what you expected. You might realize you've been living someone else's life. You might realize you don't actually know who you are beneath the roles you play. But this terror is necessary. You can't rebuild on a false foundation. You have to strip down to the truth first. The samurai practiced shugyo, austere training in isolation. Not just physical training, but mental and spiritual refinement. They would withdraw from society, live in harsh conditions, practice in silence, confront themselves without distraction. Why? Because the samurai understood the sword is sharpened in silence, not in battle. You don't become a master by constantly fighting. You become a master by withdrawing, training, refining, until mastery becomes your identity. Third, hardship destroys ego. The cave isn't comfortable. If it was, it wouldn't work. Isolation is hard. Silence is uncomfortable. Facing yourself without distraction is brutal. You see your flaws, your weaknesses, your failures, your delusions. Your ego fights back. You're wasting time. Everyone else is moving forward. You're falling behind. You should be out there performing, networking, building your brand. But if you endure, the ego starves. Because ego feeds on external validation, and the cave provides none. Eventually, ego collapses. And what's left is something stronger. Essence. Not who you think you should be, who you actually are. The early Christian monks, the Desert Fathers, withdrew into literal caves and deserts for this exact reason. Not because they hated the world, but because they knew the world shapes you into what it needs you to be. The cave allows you to become who you actually are. They called it hesychasm, inner stillness achieved through isolation and silence, the destruction of false self, the revelation of true self. Fourth, clarity emerges once noise is gone. In the world, you're bombarded with information, opinions, trends, demands. Your brain is in constant reaction mode. You can't see the bigger picture because you're too busy responding to the immediate. The cave removes the noise. And in the absence of distraction, clarity emerges. You see patterns you couldn't see before. You understand connections that were invisible in the chaos. You gain perspective that's impossible when you're in the middle of the storm. Entrepreneurs know this. That's why so many go off-grid before major launches. They're not avoiding work. They're creating the mental space for clarity. You can't see the map when you're running through the maze. You have to step out, withdraw, gain altitude. The cave provides that altitude. Psychology confirms what ancient wisdom knew. Modern research shows that isolation, when voluntary and purposeful, has profound effects. It reduces social comparison. When you're not constantly seeing what everyone else is doing, you stop measuring yourself against them. You start measuring yourself against your own standards. It increases neuroplasticity. Your brain literally rewires itself more easily in novel, low-stimulation environments. New neural patterns form, old patterns break. You become capable of thinking in ways you couldn't before. It heightens self-regulation. Without external structure, you have to create internal structure. This builds discipline, willpower, and the ability to direct yourself without external pressure. The cave isn't punishment, it's optimization. You're removing variables so you can focus on the essential work, becoming who you need to become. So what does the cave look like in modern life? You're probably not going to withdraw to an actual cave in the mountains, but you can create the same conditions. You can enter the modern cave. The gym at 5 a.m. is a cave. Nobody's there. No audience, no performance. Just you, the iron, and the work. Every rep is a conversation with yourself. Every set is a test of will. You're not working out for Instagram. You're building something nobody sees. Discipline, strength, identity. The studio apartment after divorce is a cave. You've lost the house, the lifestyle, the identity you built with someone else. Now you're alone with yourself in a small space, forced to rebuild from the foundation. It feels like failure. It's actually the beginning of transformation. The coffee shop with headphones building software is a cave. The world moves around you, but you're in your own space. Hours disappear. Code flows. You're creating something that doesn't exist yet, and nobody knows you're doing it. No validation, no updates, just the work. Declining social events to build skills is choosing the cave. Your friends think you're being antisocial. You're not. You're withdrawing temporarily because you understand. The person who emerges from 6 months of focused skill building is different than the person who went in. The cave isn't a place, it's a condition. The condition of voluntary isolation for the purpose of transformation. Now let me break down the 3 phases of the cave, because if you understand these phases, you'll know where you are and what comes next. Phase 1, collapse/withdrawal. This is where most men enter the cave, not by choice, but by necessity. Something breaks, a relationship ends, a business fails, a career implodes, a dream dies. You're forced into isolation, either literally or functionally. You withdraw. You stop showing up to social events. You stop posting on social media. You stop performing the version of yourself you used to perform because you can't. The energy is gone. The performance is over. This phase feels like death. And in a way, it is. The old identity is dying. The person you were no longer fits the life you're living. You tell yourself, I just need to step back. I need space. I need to figure this out. Most men try to rush through this phase. They try to fix everything immediately, get back to normal, perform recovery. But you can't skip this phase. The collapse is necessary. The withdrawal is part of the process. You have to let the old version die before the new version can emerge. Phase 2, confrontation. If you stay in the cave long enough, you enter the second phase. This is where the real work happens. You start confronting things you've been avoiding. Your ego, all the stories you told yourself about who you are, what you deserve, what you're capable of. The cave forces you to examine whether those stories are true. Your regrets, the decisions you wish you could undo, the opportunities you missed, the time you wasted, the people you hurt. In the noise of the world, you can avoid these. In the cave, they're impossible to ignore. Your identity. Who are you without the job title, without the relationship status, without the performance? Strip away everything external. What's left? This phase is brutal. This is where most men break. They can't handle the confrontation, so they run back to the world. They seek distraction, new relationships, new jobs, new projects, anything to avoid facing themselves. But if you endure this phase, if you sit with the discomfort and do the work, something remarkable happens. You start journaling, not for performance, but for clarity. You write down the truths you've been avoiding. You map out who you were, who you are, and who you want to become. You face the ego and realize, most of what I thought was important doesn't actually matter. You face the regrets and realize, I can't change the past, but I can build a different future. You face your identity and realize, I'm not what I lost, I'm what I'm building right now. The Stoics journaled through this phase. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all used writing to confront themselves. The samurai meditated through this phase, sitting in silence, facing the mind, letting illusions dissolve. Modern men therapy through this phase, or coaching, or mentorship, or just honest conversations with themselves on long walks. The method doesn't matter. What matters is you have to confront the truth before you can rebuild on truth. Phase 3, reconstruction. This is where transformation becomes visible, not to the world yet, to you. You start building new habits, not because you're trying to impress anyone, because you're becoming someone new, and new identities require new patterns. You wake up early, not to post about it, but because disciplined men wake up early, and you're becoming a disciplined man. You train, not for aesthetics, but because strong men train, and you're becoming a strong man. You read, not to seem intellectual, but because wise men read, and you're becoming a wise man. You start building a new skill, not because it's trendy, because it's aligned with who you're becoming. You develop a new mission, not to prove something to the world, because purpose is the foundation of identity and you're building from the foundation up. The world doesn't see any of this yet. You're still in the cave. But inside the cave, You're no longer collapsing. You're no longer confronting. You're reconstructing. And one day, could be 6 months, could be 2 years, you realize, I'm ready to emerge. Not because you're perfect, because you're different. The person entering the cave and the person leaving it are not the same. This is the power of the cave principle. You don't avoid the cave. You use it. You let it strip away what's false. You let it reveal what's true. You let it destroy the old identity so the new one can be built. Here's the fundamental difference. The loud man avoids silence because he fears what he'll hear. He stays busy, stays distracted, stays performing, because if he stops, if he's alone with his thoughts, he might realize, I don't actually know who I am. I don't actually like who I've become. I don't actually believe in what I'm doing. So he never enters the cave. He lives his entire life on the surface, reacting to the world, never confronting himself. And when crisis comes, and it always comes, he has no foundation. He collapses completely because there's nothing underneath the performance. The silent man enters the cave because he knows it's the only path to rebirth. He doesn't fear silence. He seeks it because he understands transformation doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the cave. He withdraws not to escape, but to engage with himself, with truth, with the work of becoming. And when he emerges, he's unrecognizable. Not because he's pretending to be someone else, because he actually became someone else. This is the way of every great man in history. Musashi emerged from the cave with mastery nobody could challenge. Jobs emerged from the cave and built the future. The samurai emerged from Shugyo as masters. The monks emerged from the desert with unshakable faith. The entrepreneurs emerged from monk mode with products that change industries. The pattern never changes. Withdrawal, confrontation, reconstruction, emergence. You can fight this pattern. You can try to skip the cave. You can stay on the surface your whole life, or you can embrace it. You can recognize, I'm in the cave right now, and that means I'm exactly where I need to be. The cave isn't failure. The cave is the forge. If you're in the cave right now, I need you to understand something. You're not broken, you're rebuilding. The isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The silence isn't emptiness, it's clarity forming. The hardship isn't defeat, it's ego being destroyed so essence can emerge. You might be in phase 1, collapsed, withdrawn, barely holding it together. That's okay. Let the old version die. Don't rush it. You might be in phase 2, confronting yourself, facing hard truths, doing the brutal internal work. That's okay. This is where transformation happens. Stay with it. You might be in phase 3, reconstructing, building new habits, developing new skills, becoming someone new. That's okay. Keep building. The emergence is coming. Wherever you are in the cave, you're on the path. The world won't understand. They'll think you're hiding, failing, giving up. Let them think that. Their opinion doesn't matter in the cave. Only the work matters. Your challenge, embrace the cave. Stop fighting the isolation. Stop trying to rush back to the world. Use this time. Journal every day. Write down what you're confronting, what you're learning, who you're becoming. Build one new habit, not 10. One, something that aligns with the identity you're constructing. Develop one new skill, something that will matter when you emerge, something only you will know you're building. If you're connecting with this message, if you're in the cave right now, or you understand why the cave is necessary, hit the like button. You're not alone. Thousands of men are in the cave at any given moment, doing the work nobody sees. And if you want the complete cave worksheet, the 3-phase breakdown, the journaling prompts for each phase, the reconstruction checklist, and the emergence readiness assessment, text CAVE to 325-378-6868. You'll get everything you need to navigate the cave with purpose instead of pain. This is the silent CEO method. We don't fear isolation. We use it. We don't avoid silence. We enter it. We don't stay on the surface. We go deep. We understand that every great emergence requires a great withdrawal. We embrace the cave because we know the man who enters and the man who emerges are never the same. The next video on your screen will show you how to build the discipline required to endure the cave, because staying in isolation long enough to transform requires strength most men don't have. Remember, Musashi entered the cave. Jobs entered the cave. Every great man entered the cave. Not to hide, to transform. You're in the cave right now. Don't waste it. Use it. Withdraw, confront, reconstruct, emerge. This is the way.